into this time of the year that when I'm in this time of the year, it's going to be flooded and loaded with all kinds of emotions and all kinds of expectations and feelings and thoughts, and I want things to go a certain way, and I'm working through stuff, and I call it the end of the year gauntlet, right? You got Thanksgiving, which brings up all sorts of things for me. Anyone seen The Bear season 2? Yeah, okay, that family dinner, welcome to my household, and that is not an exaggeration, and this is why I've had a lot of therapy. If you don't know it, you'll watch it, and it's wild times. But I know that feeling of going into Thanksgiving. I know what Thanksgiving is now, and it's beautiful, and I have boundaries and all the work that came around it, and I was no longer going to show up to Aunt Janet's house, because at Janet's house, that's her name. Of course it was. And she was a sweet, sweet, sweet woman, right? And it also happened that my grandma was wildly racist, right? There was just as many of you have the grandmas that are. And you don't know how to sort through the stuff. They loved when I started New Abbey. I think I've shared this story in here a couple times, when cousin Tim sent me the text that said, "You're sending people to the lake of fire." And I said, "It's good to hear from you too, Tim. How are you? Maybe we should talk in person." Lake of Fire is a strong start. I think I go into the holidays as well, and I really anticipate how much weight I'm going to lose in 2025, because I know I'm going to go hard, right? I'm already anticipating the pictures where I feel swollen. That'll be nice. This is all real. This is all just real stuff, right? And then there's like Christmas Day and the push and the rush and the gifts and the feelings of it, and then there's money, and then there's like New Year's, right? And like, I'm going to make all of the resolutions, and my life's going to change, and then 2 days in, I really haven't done anything yet. It's just normal, is what I'm saying. It's normal, whatever you're feeling in this end of the year gauntlet, to feel it. And as we get to the end of the year together, I want to not just wait for 2025 to happen. I don't want just life to happen to me and for me to live in osmosis and for me to react to anything and everything that might come my way. I definitely don't want the internet to be the thing that feeds my soul and provides the narratives for who I'm going to be as a human being. I want to be proactive. And so much of what I think Jesus invites us into is this journey of proactively waiting. Proactively being a part of, we use big words in the church like the kingdom of God, maybe it's ultimate reality. Pick the thing that you want, but in some way saying, I am not going to react to the world around me. I love this phrase that I heard years ago, that if I'm made in the image of a creator, then I'm a creator and not a reactor. That's a good evangelical one back in the day. But it's true. That's who I want to be, and I don't want to wait over the next 36 or whatever it is days left in the year to then get my life in order. I want to start practicing things now that shape who I am, that transform who I am, that participate in my healing, and really the season of life that I am, more importantly, participate in the maturity of the type of person that I want to be. So together today, we're going to talk about proactively waiting as we get ready for Advent next week. As we get ready for waiting and anticipation and hope, and for God to show up as the reminder that we come to every year in the ways that God does, way beyond any of us. In the darkest nights, in the places where we think that God is most forsaken, we light trees and candles and decorate as a reminder of the celebration that God is always with us. But as we get there, let's proactively wait together. If we're going to talk about proactively waiting, we're going to talk about some things. We already talked about the end of the year gauntlet. If we can do that, then I think we need to have a good tool of grieving. If we can talk about grieving, then we can talk about in July when I went to Africa with 10 days notice. If we can talk about Africa, then we can remember together. And if we can remember together, then Wicked, my friends. Great. And if we can talk about Wicked, by the way, who doesn't love spoiler alerts? I'd love that from Johnny. Yeah, if you don't know what's happening at the end of Wicked, just spoiler alert, Jesus resurrects. If you didn't see that coming, watch The Passion of the Christ. Flip to the very end of the Gospels. It's all there. Dumbledore dies, book 6. That's on you if you don't know that yet. So, oh, I'm sorry. It's been out for 25 years. And I, by the way, I had someone in the community, I've said this for years, and they got to book 6, and they texted me and they said, "You mother." I know. You're welcome. If we can talk about Wicked, then we can talk about intention and attention. And then if we can do that, let's get a little woo-woo and let's manifest some things. And if we can manifest, then the Lion King, my friends. Follow along with me in Deuteronomy chapter 34. It goes like this. Did somebody just say, wow? Yeah? Deuteronomy fans? Yeah. I love the Pentateuch. That is what gets me going. You think I'm joking? A little Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Talk about a good time. Do I often read rabbi commentary on in the morning to start my day? That's how I live my life. So here we go. Then Moses climbed Mount Nebo from the plains of Moab to the top of Pisgah across from Jericho, and there the Lord, that's Yahweh, showed him the whole land from Gilead to Dan. This is kind of like the Lion King moment already where, like, you know, Mufasa takes Simba up and, like, everything the light touches, right? This is kind of what God is doing with Moses right now. All of Naphtali, the territory of Ephraim and Manasseh, and all the land of Judah as far as the Mediterranean Sea. The Negev and the whole region from the valley of Jericho, the city of palms, as far as Zoar. Yeah, it's good times. Then Yahweh said to him, this is the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when I said, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you will not cross over into it. Pause there for a second. That's such a huge line that nobody saw coming. In the first 5 books of the Bible. The first 5 books of the Bible, again, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, the Torah, that's like the Jewish Gospels. Everything revolves around that story. You have the Exodus moments that happen where God comes in and God does God things and frees us. Again, this is a universal story. It's not a story, we say it around here all the time, take the Bible seriously and not literally. If you just take the Pentateuch literally, it's really not that helpful for you, to be honest. Right? You're trying to figure out, like, well, which Pharaoh was it, Ramesses II? Missing the point. The point is that there will always be pharaohs in life, and there will always be Egypts, and there will always be things that feel more overwhelming than you can handle. And a universal story of humanity is that even whether that's a system or it's your own personal addiction, there's a God there who wants to come and free you. And when God frees you from that slavery, whatever that thing may be, then God wants to take you into the wilderness, and God wants to teach you transformation, and God wants to mature you. Because now you've been healed from that thing, or you are moving in the process of healing, because we know this in life. Many of us have shown up to church where they promise us healing, where you just raise your hand and you say the prayer and everything goes away, and it doesn't. Because that's not the invitation. The invitation is coming into a place where you recognize that you need God, or for my 12-step brothers and sisters out there, a power greater than yourself. And only after you found that power greater than yourself, then God leads you in the other 12 steps, or the other 10 steps from that point on, I guess. And it's about learning and growing, and that's where we get the 10 commandments and all of these things that God's trying to show humanity a better way of living. And that's exactly what Jesus does as well. It's the same journey. Jesus calls people to follow, and then Jesus says, come and follow me, and let me show you this way of life. That when you live in this way of life, then what Jesus is offering you, Jesus, interestingly enough, never talks about hell in the way that we talk about it, which is weird that we didn't know that, right? Jesus doesn't talk about heaven in the way that we talk about it. What Jesus invites you into are words like this: I have come that you may have life, this life, and life to the fullest. And isn't that what you want? Don't you want to end 2024 living life to the fullest, that regardless of presidential elections or politics or the economy or what happens with Aunt Janet or if Cousin Tim texts you or not, you can have life and life to the fullest because of a deep well of reality that is within you is the invitation. And so all of that is happening in the Pentateuch, that they go through this incredible journey. They're at the end of the wilderness. There's this promise that is out there, the promised land. Again, literally, not helpful for you. I don't care if you're drawing the lines of Naphtali and the city of palms. Like, grow up. You don't need that, right? What you need to say is, I have a promised land in my life as well. There's a thing that I long for and dream for and desire for, a purpose, whatever the thing may be in my life that motivates me. And what if God cares about that thing as well? What if God is interested in my thriving as well? That's what you need to care about. And so in the story, there's always this thing that maybe it was that job or that relationship or that health or that wellness, that thing that you've been longing for in your life, and it's right there. You've gone through 40 years in the wilderness. You guys came out of Egypt, and Moses was the guy. And God says, there it is. And you are never going to go into it. That's a big one for the church world, I think. Because sometimes I think that we can have this promised land and this desire and this thing that we want, and I think so much of life sometimes is, what if my healing and my transformation and my success is really just setting someone else up? Is that also good and beautiful? I think about that for my kids all the time. There are demons that dad has that I will work through probably my entire life. But I know this wholeheartedly. There's a carousel of abuse and insanity and addiction that is a part of my family for 3 generations, and I got off of it. And I will deal with my demons, but they will have a different world to live into. And when they come to this place, they will have so much less to unlearn about Jesus. Because you're not sitting around asking them about predispensationalism, because that's weird. And the rapture is weird. And telling kids if they don't accept Jesus into their heart at 6-year-olds that they're going to be a part of eternal damnation is weird. And it's abusive. And it's not helpful. And honestly, it's not even biblically founded, nor theologically. And so that was a free tangent. I don't know why I went all that, but you don't need all of that. Back to the text. And Moses, the servant of Yahweh, died there in Moab, as Yahweh had said. And he buried him in Moab in the valley opposite Beth Peor. But to this day, no one knows where his grave is. This is all just a fun fact about these things. I love spirituality in the scriptures. So much of what our Judeo-Christian faith is about is there's no someone's like secret bone setting somewhere. This is a part of like you learning and growing in your own journey. What God's always trying to show in these things of like where Jesus resurrects or Moses' bones aren't buried somewhere is if we knew that there was bones somewhere, we would all be trying to go get on a plane and go to that place. And the spiritual evolution of the scripture is like, you don't need to go find Moses' bones. You don't need to go find that secret temple. You don't need to go travel to that thing to find God. The magic of it is that the God, the divine of the universe has already been, always been in you. And this is where you find hope. This is where you deal with your wildernesses, and this is where you find promised land. The teachers of the law came to Jesus and they said to him, Teacher, where is this kingdom you speak of? We look everywhere for it. And Jesus says, it's already within you. That's the magic of what Jesus is inviting you into. So Moses was 120 years old when he died, and yet his eyes were not weak nor his strength gone. Free Bible facts again. Moses is 120. Don't take it literally. Jews love 40 years at a time. 40 years represent different places of transformation for somebody's life. Moses' first 40 years when he was the prince of Egypt. Watch the movie if you don't know what that's like. It's a good one. And that's just about like a young person coming of age, figuring it out, proving themselves, creating things, building these things, wanting to conquer, because that's just what we do as human beings. And the second 40 years of Moses' life is him being out there in the wilderness by himself and getting married and having some sheep and doing the thing and finding a little maturity. And then the last 40 years of Moses' life, so he started when he was 80, is when he goes back to Egypt. And there he invites the people of God to be a part of the maturity that he's participated in. Again, for my 12-step brothers and sisters in the room, the 12th step. Now that you have this spiritual recovery, you got to go pass it on to somebody else. Now that you conquered and proved yourself and did all the things and bought the Lamborghini and everyone's like, a Corvette? That's odd, right? Or whatever weird choices we make sometimes to prove ourselves in this world and think that it finds and makes us happiness. You've gone through all of that, and then you've gone through your wilderness and your maturity, and then you're like, man, I have something to offer this world. And that's the story of Moses. And then here's also a fun Bible fact for you if you want to just keep reading scriptures, is anytime it talks about eyes, it's like such a big deal. Because what it's saying is like Moses could still see clearly God in the world. He wasn't corrupted. He still had integrity. He had spiritual vision. It has nothing to do with that they're blind or not. Anytime you see someone blind, it's trying to say like they're missing it, right? It's all just fun Bible facts. Moving on. Here we go. The Israelites grieved for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days until the time of weeping and mourning was over. And now Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom because Moses had laid his hands on him. So the Israelites listened to him and did what Yahweh had commanded Moses. Since then, no prophet has risen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, who did all these signs and wonders Yahweh sent him to do in Egypt to Pharaoh and to all his officials and to his whole land. For no one has ever shown the mighty power or performed the awesome deeds that Moses did in the sight of all Israel. So that's the story, and what I love about the story is it's really just preparing us for proactively waiting. That for the Israelites at the time, again, taking the story seriously and a universal story for all human beings, is that sometimes we just get to a place where we're waiting for the thing to happen, and there's really nothing in our control to get there. But that doesn't mean that you have to sit around again in osmosis or react to the world around you. There's always proactive things that we can be participating in that continues to lead to our healing or our transformation or our maturity, even whatever that promised land that you're longing for, even if it hasn't arrived yet. Because if your life is going to be based on only when things work out and only when you grasp the promised land, only when you raise that Academy Award, only when you get that Grammy, only when a certain amount of money is in your bank account, only, then you're going to be satisfied, the secret is you will be dissatisfied. I shared this one in a couple of weeks ago, right? When Jim Carrey gets that award, I'm not just any Golden Globe recipient. I'm two-time Golden Globe recipient Jim Carrey. I don't even know why I brought that up right now. That was just, you need to see the clip, and it just came to my mind, so I talked about it. But the point of it is this, is that you can get all of the awards and all of the money, and you can prove yourself and do all of the things, and that's not what leads to real satisfaction in the world. And what God is constantly inviting us into is to finding contentment and satisfaction and purpose and meaning for our lives and to proactively wait, here we are, in the here and the now. So I want to talk about four quick tools. I think that allows us to do that. The first is this: grieve. For so many of you, I recognize that not the entire church, but this church leans pretty heavily left. And so a couple weeks ago, you might be devastated at what took place in the world. Some of you, maybe not. But the point is, I've lived through 2016, I've lived through 2020, many of you have lived through a lot of different things. That cannot be the thing that drives your hope and your happiness and your well-being in the world every time a different Pharaoh changes out. Because if it is, you're just going to constantly be bummed. But here's also the reality that I see in the scriptures that we get from this story is that Moses died, and I love this in Jewish history and Jewish tradition. They had 30 days to grieve. They put a time limit on it. They also did a thing where it's like, no, we are going to grieve hard for 30 days. This is not what we expected. We thought for sure Moses is going with us into the promised land. We've come this far. I didn't expect this to happen. I didn't anticipate this. I wasn't ready for it. I'm not prepared for it, but it did. And the scriptures are like, if you got to grieve because that horrible thing happened to you, that betrayal, that pain, that loss, that system, your addiction shut up again, whatever the thing may be, it's okay to grieve. And get it out. Do it well. Invite people into it. Talk to a great therapist. Find some wisdom around you. Be mad as hell. Shake your fists at the heaven. Do all of the things. Hey, but you got like 36 days left in this year. So in some ways, get your grieving out. And I'm not trying to like rush you, prosperity gospel, this or that. I know I'm a good Enneagram 3, but I'm like, man, don't let 2025 appear and you're still grieving. Like, do some of that work. For the next week, grieve. Let it out. And then say, man, where do I want to go from here? And this summer, I was invited to Africa last minute, and I got to go. And one of the great things about a surprise trip is that generally, again, I'm living my life at like full octane. I don't know how to do it. I'm not great at resting, and I just like building things. That's just how I'm wired. So now I'm in Africa with no cell service, nothing to do, and I just get to be a part of this like really beautiful experience of seeing like water provided for people in the world who like don't have access to clean water. And I found myself incredibly sad. Because for the first time in like over 2 years, I was just still with myself. And I didn't have distractions. And I realized that there was things that had happened to me in the last couple of years that I didn't grieve fully. I didn't let them fully come up because I'm wired to just move on to the next thing and say, I'm okay, and this is what I'm doing now, and things are going well, and these are the things that I'm working on. But I realized I was so incredibly sad, and then I was so incredibly mad, and I was so incredibly angry. And I gave myself finally permission to be angry and to be sad and to shake my fist at the heaven and say, I didn't feel right. That didn't feel fair. Well, how come me? Why me, God? And what if that's just okay? God, why isn't Moses going into the promised land with us? He got us this far. Really? Joshua? That guy's got no experience. Whatever the story is for your life, God, I didn't think that this was going to happen. That didn't seem right. I can't believe they would do that to me. I have worked so faithfully in my 12-step program. That relationship was brutal. I can't believe they fired me. And you got to feel all of it. Feel it. Don't rush over that. But maybe a tool is put a time limit on it. I'm going to go hard here for 30 days. Pick your number. But honestly, I can't let this thing overcome me and overtake me for the rest of my life. I'm going to go do the work. And I did. I went and did internal family systems. I got with one of the therapists I've done before, and we did the work, and I'm still in the work. But part of it is just naming, okay, I'm so grateful for a moment where I was able to slow down. And sometimes when I create intentional space in my life to slow down, then I have the ability to feel all the things that I'm feeling. So feel. The next tool, besides maybe grieving, that you need is to remember. What I love about these Old Testament stories is it's constantly bringing us back to phrases like this. Remember what I did for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or remember when I brought you out of Egypt? That phrase is used again and again and again and again in the scriptures for a reason. It's used because it's trying to remind you, and it's trying to bring you to a place of remembering and reflecting what's been going on in your life. It's trying to lead you to a place of remembering and reflecting so that you don't forget where you've come from. So that when you move forward into the next thing, you can say to yourself, I can't believe that I got through that. In this current job situation or in this current relationship or in this version of myself, right? I can look back and say, I know that I will be able to get through this. Maybe not all of me. There's going to be a ton of grace and a ton of God and a ton of faith and a ton of all the components that we put into that thing together. But I trust that there's a path forward in this because when I look back at the other 7 versions of me, I got through that too. And there was moments where I was just in grief, and I never could have imagined that I would have gotten through that. And yet I did. And sometimes I think it's just helpful to find these tools in life where we reflect and we remember all of the good that has already taken place. Maybe you need to journal that. Maybe a good practice is after you journal or after you think about it, go tell somebody else. There's something really powerful about writing these things down or expressing them to other human beings. When they get out of us, they kind of like take reality sometimes and take shape in a different way. That if we can grieve as a tool, maybe that's where you're at right now to do 2024 well. Maybe the tool that you need is to remember and reflect on all the things that God is already doing or has done and all the places that you've already come from. And maybe one of the things that you need to do right now is a tool about intention and attention. I think about this a lot. What I love about this story is that it says this phrase that Moses saw God face to face. Sometimes in liberal church world, and I'm guilty of this, and I'm a pastor of this church, is I forget God a lot. I forget God a lot. And every time that I do, it doesn't help my life. When I remember God, when I'm intentional about it, and when I bring my attention towards God, I tend to find that my life just feels a different way. And I long for that. And I want that. And one of the tools I would just put on all of this is whether you're grieving, whether you're remembering or reflecting, or whether you're finding intention and attention towards God, I would offer this tool, and I try not to be prescriptive in this place, more descriptive, but just honestly just turn off your phone. Try 5 minutes. Try 5 minutes of turning that thing off. Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's just sitting there. Maybe it's gratitude. Maybe it's grieving. Maybe it's just your attention. And here's the thing where I don't get prescriptive. I have no idea what it looks like for you to turn your attention towards God, but I think you do. Maybe it's a walk. Maybe it's meditation. Maybe it's just laying in bed. Maybe it's staring at a sunset. Maybe it's listening to something. I don't know what it is, but I know the feeling and the energy when my attention is towards God and my intention is there. And when I stop and I reflect and I pause and I have my intention and attention towards God, I tend to find that my life just works differently. Maybe it's all made up. Maybe it's a placebo effect. I don't care. Because at the end of the day, it's something that I experience, and I notice in other people that when they're intentional about it, the teams, I didn't even think about bringing this up. You guys told me a story once, and I'm just going to share it, so I hope forgiveness, not permission. You just told me a story about how you guys get up every morning and you pray together. And you pray as a couple, and it inspires me. It inspires me that as a couple, your intention and attention is set every single day together and with God. And you're people that I look to model something for me. You've got grown kids who are doing well. They're here today, right? Your kids love you and want to hang out with you and want to be with you, and that is beautiful. And I think it's so much of the way that you live your lives, and I think it's because of the intention and attention that you have. And thank you for that. I know I need that. Maybe you need to grieve. Maybe you need to remember and reflect. Maybe your intention and attention needs to go towards God. And then maybe you just need to manifest some things. And what I love about the scriptures is you kind of name it. All the old school stuff of name it and claim it. Yeah, kind of do that. Seriously. Like, get it out there into the world. Bring it up. This is where I want my life to be. This is what I hope for. This is what I long for. This is who I am. That doesn't all have to be things that you do. I do this with my daughter every single night before she goes to bed, and she repeats after me. And some of you heard me say this before. And she says, I am loved. And she says, I am loved. I am kind. I'm kind. I am brave. I am brave. I am smart. I'm smart, Dad. I am beautiful. When she goes, beautiful, she goes, beautiful. I am beautiful. And then she says, I am a leader. I am changing the world. And then I always do this part, and I go, I am, she says it in her sweet little voice, I am Bella Grace Marquez. Manifest your reality out there. Little 7-year-old Bella's doing it, and we all do it. I love, again, the name of God in here, why I said Yahweh so many times. I am who I am. It's trying to get you to trust and to lean into who you are and who God is and what's true about you. So much of the work of this place is trying to get you to let go of bad religion that so many of us took on, that told you, I am bad, I am wrong, I am depraved, I am this, I am an abomination. No, I don't see any of that of what God is doing. You are made in the image of a creator. You are good. You are loved. You are wonderful. You deserve that thing. You should be healthy. Jesus says, I have come that you might have rest, right? I have come for those who are weary and downtrodden. Those are the types of things that Jesus says. And Abbey, I want you to not just wait for that into 2025. But think about, how can I use these tools now in the end of 2024 to finish this year well? I don't want to wait for the thing. I don't want to wait for my life to begin. How do I, in this moment, regardless of where you're at or what's taking place, utilize one of these tools? If you need to grieve, grieve, because you're honestly going to get through it. Because if not, 2 years from now, you're going to be on some random trip, and you're like, why am I so sad? Remember and reflect well. You're here. Now, Abbey, every single week when some of you get up here and you share your stories, you're here. And it's incredible, and it's beautiful, and it's powerful. Would you manifest the reality that you want in life? Because not only do you need that, but I trust that there's other people in this room who need it as well. Would you find those same 3 or 4 people around you, and would you answer this question? What tool will you use to proactively wait? Enjoy.